For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name's Lulu. I'm the head of teacher experience at Flint. I run all of these campfire sessions, talk to a lot of teachers about how they're using Flint, and then also my role to like share with new educators and new people who are just getting started with Flint how they might use Flint for various use cases and subjects. So yeah, today we're just put this in full screen. Okay. Today we are discussing how to use Flint for design and art courses. I think I was a little ambitious with combining, so there is a lot of content to get through today, and I will try and speed through a lot of it because we do have two wonderful teachers who have agreed to do shareouts, and I also have like an additional video from someone. But yeah, it is like a really it is a subject that is kind of near and dear to my heart, though. I was kind of that art kid growing up, and then I studied industrial design for my bachelor's. So yeah, kind of all of this feels familiar, and it was really fun actually creating activities for this session. But yeah, we'll get started with some icebreaking news, and then I'll go through some useful features in Flint, and then I'll give some examples of activities and chats and kind of show everyone how to create those. I know there's like some people who are just getting started, some people who are like a bit more experienced on this call. So that's like the section where we can level set everything. And then hopefully I can leave about 30 minutes for the teachers to do their share outs and for anyone else to also share examples of how they've been using Flint and what they've been learning. Yeah, and as always, the recording will be available later. Questions are welcome. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and get started with the icebreaking news. So this is kind of a section where I just pull out some interesting news that's kind of related to the topic, just to kind of get everyone's like thoughts rolling about AI, since it is like a industry that's changing every single day. I don't know if you all saw this trend recently where people are taking their photos and then they're asking ChatGPT to make it Ghibli themed, or like in the style of Ghibli. It's definitely created a lot of controversy, and I just saw this Business Insider article where Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was out here defending AI generated art, and he said some things like AI means more people can create art, so he views that as a net win for society. And yeah, he thinks it lowers the barriers to creativity. I feel like we could spend the whole hour kind of discussing this whole thing, but basically I wanted to share this and kind of touch on how like the view of using AI for art and art classes is kind of all over the place right now. People have a variety of opinions, but what I do think like a lot of people can agree on is that responsible use and emphasis on the intention and process is really important to teach students. So I will also try and focus on that, like in this presentation, and center around fostering that creative process and allowing the teachers to gain insight into student thinking and like into the student creativity process there. But yeah, so just really quickly going to touch on some features in Flint, especially if you're like just getting started, you might not have seen all of the wide variety of things you can do with Flint yet. So firstly, we do have image generation. Currently, we use DALL-E 3, which is a model by OpenAI. And yeah, I mean, it's free to use for students in the platform. There's no limits there. And for each of these, I've like put a description of the feature and also like a little idea that might be interesting to try out. But you can always have students compare the outputs of different models and like see what Flint creates versus like, I know like Adobe also has a free Adobe Firefly where students can create different things as well. So that might be cool to kind of compare. But yeah, they can always use Flint to generate references or inspiration. I'll show you an example of that later. Image recognition is also available in Flint. So you can also upload your own images into Flint. You can have students upload their images into Flint and get feedback or kind of ask questions about it. So you can even have like, for example, Flint roleplay as a curious museum visitor, and then the student has to explain the pieces to them. Yeah, and then you can upload content in Flint. This is pretty important for if you want to really gear what sort of knowledge it's pulling from. Yeah, there's like a bunch of different things you can do here, like images, like we kind of touched on earlier, but you can also like add documents and different other resources that you might already have as a teacher. And then finally, for the like start of the design process, students might be doing some research on what sort of topic they want to address or what sort of like subjects that they want to include in their designs or art. So you can always have Flint do research with students as well. And if you're interested in the research bit, we did do a Campfire session a week ago or 2 weeks ago on that. So that's also on our website if you want to watch that whole thing. But yeah, Flint can search the web, it can cite its sources, and yeah, it's really helpful for getting AI to help tackle more like current design trends or like news articles and stuff. Yeah, and this is the inline citations that Flint can create, where Flint will show students where it pulls its information from. Yeah, so just like whenever students are doing that, you can tell them to check the sources that Flint shares with them, and Flint should like show them the link and allow them to visit that link pretty easily. Okay, so now for the beefier part of this presentation. But for various activities and chats in Flint, I've listed out some ideas here. Um, no need to screenshot or anything. I'll share out the slides after this presentation, but yeah, anything from like being a research partner to a brainstorming partner, giving feedback, a writing partner. You can even use Flint for like mock interviews. And then also like analyses and having Flint be like a tutor in that sense. Yeah, there's like a lot of different applications for art and design. And I think like sometimes it doesn't come super apparently to folks. So yeah, excited for everyone to share their ideas here today. But yeah, really quickly to level set, in Flint, we have chats and activities. Chats are kind of like you're talking with ChatGPT. It's great for one-off conversations where you want like quick answers or ideas, free-form brainstorming and content generation. But that's like you using Flint on your own. And then activities is where you're using Flint with students. So like any sort of recurring conversations that you want to have, you can create an activity for yourself, or if it's like you want to have a lot of students have similar conversations at the same time, that's where it would be best to create an activity. But yeah, you can design them to have specific outputs and or interactions, and they're super easy to share, which I'll also walk through. Yeah, okay, so now I'm gonna jump into the platform. This is kind of what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and start off with sharing some examples of chats that I've made over the course of today. Um, the first of which, as an example, so you could use Flint to help you generate rubrics or any other sort of like additional teaching materials here. So I actually uploaded this sort of like self-reflection guide that talks about how self-reflection should look for like lower versus middle versus upper schools. Um, And then I asked Flint to create rubrics for specific grade levels, where I was saying like third through fifth, sixth through eighth, ninth through 10th, 11th through 12th. Yeah, and I was able to do that. So you can use Flint to kind of like scale the work that you need students to do really easily. That's one example. Here's an example of like using Flint as a brainstorming partner. So I said, this year I have students who are really interested in street art, community art projects, and mixed media artists. And then I was trying to figure out like, okay, if I want them to start doing aesthetic analyses, what sort of artists should I look at to kind of appeal to this group's interests? So it was able to suggest a bunch of names to me and then also examples of their work. And then I asked it for like a lesson plan for how to incorporate this, but also some more classic artworks and more commonly known works used in analyses. So yeah, it was able to create the plan there for me as well. Okay, and then final one in the chats. So here I said like, hey, I'm teaching middle school art students and I want to kind of introduce them to the different elements of art, and I said, can you generate a very basic Bob Ross-esque mountain and lake scene for me to start off with? So I was able to do that. And then I said, okay, so let's play around with texture now. And it was able to create a more texture-based image for me. And then I said, like, okay, how about color? And then how about value? And let's see, line. And like I could go through all of them also with like form. And yeah, this is just like an example of the range of art generation that Flint can also do with. Yeah. Okay. Those are examples of chats. Any questions about the chat so far, I guess? Cool. Okay. Nice. We're gonna get to the slightly more complicated part. So now I'm going to go back to this main screen and show you all an example of making an activity. So yeah, the chats are at the top here. You can always like pick one of these specific ones, or this last one will like let you start off a chat without a set like topic chosen. And the activities, when you scroll down, are kind of similar, where you'll have like the different suggestions, but you can also create a custom activity. I'm going to go ahead and do the custom one. And then I'm going to paste in this prompt that I wrote earlier. Basically saying, I want Flint to give feedback to IBDP design technology students. Um, I want it to give them feedback on their individual design projects. And I'm linking the criteria that they need to meet, which is it's like listed here in this one teacher's website, the like A through F criteria needed for this project. And then, yeah, and then I just gave it the context of like where the students are at in the process. So I said like, oh, highlighted the wrong bit. They're at the stage where they're putting together their portfolios. And then I said that I want you to help guide them in their writing, guide them in writing their reflections and evaluations, and give them feedback on their portfolio contents and structure. So it is a lot, and I'm just gonna like give it to Flint and see what it makes. But yeah, when you're creating the activity here, on this left-hand side, you'll be having this chat with Flint. It will help to write all of the settings for you. So right now it's saying, let me think. And really that means that it's like figuring out how this activity should be structured and how it should set up all of the different bits of the settings to make it make sense. You can always dig into the manual settings here if you want. But yeah, usually people stick with the chat and Flint will put together everything for you. And then on the right-hand side, which just popped up, you'll see a simulation of the preview of the session. So here you can try it out manually. You can also simulate it automatically. And yeah, usually the process kind of looks like you can put some prompts into Flint and then you can try it out and then like figure out what's still weird or like not quite the way you want it, reprompt it. And then once you're happy with it, you just need to create the activity. But yeah, as an example, I'm going to ask Flint if it can make this a graded assignment that follows conventional IB grading scales. Because right now it's not graded yet, and I can tell because this is gray and it doesn't show any of the grades here. And then it should set that up for a scale of 1 to 7. And once it does that, I can show you the preview as well. But something I also want to show you all is that you can use this chat with Flint as a brainstorming partner as well. So after it does this, I'm actually also going to ask it if it thinks that this is too much for the students to do in one activity, basically. And if it has suggestions for whether this should be multiple activities or not. So once that finishes uploading, you can always see like the changes that Flint is making. So here it like shows me how it created a new rubric for the activity. Yeah, and I'm gonna send this now so that we can see it. But yeah, when you're simulating it, you can choose the simulation at like a different assessment scale. So like if you choose one of the lower ones, that'll be like a student, more like a student who is struggling. Higher ones, more like a student who is doing well. So I'll just like pick kind of in the middle. And Flint will then play both its own role and the student's role and kind of play out the conversation for you so that you can see what the expectations for like the communication between the AI and student and where the conversation is going will look like. I think I'm requesting too many things of it at once, but yeah, now it's playing the preview here for you all to see. But yeah, that's kind of what the activity creation process looks like. You can use the Build with Flint chat to ask Flint to do different things for you, update different things, and also as a brainstorming partner. And then you can preview the sessions on the right-hand side. And it will also at the end like show you what the feedback looks like for the student. But yeah, I usually tell people, hey, it's best to preview it, but then also try it out manually. And then once you've kind of done your due diligence there, students should have a pretty good time with it. Cool. Any questions about activity creation? Thank you for the thumbs up emojis. Great. All right. So I just want to share one more quick example before we dive into the share out section. But in this activity, I'm actually creating a user interview simulation. I remember when I was like a baby design student, interviewing people in the real world was like one of the scariest things. And then also, you only really start to get better at it after you've done a few. So I thought that this might be an interesting activity for students to do with AI first. And then once they have that practice, they can ask better questions of the people that they actually get a hold of in the real world. So here I actually gave Flint the prompt of I want you to act as various people that the students can interview. I gave it this list of 10 different personas that Flint actually also helped me create. And so here it like made 10 different personas of different sorts of elderly people. And the focus was kind of on like a software product. So it gave information about their background, tech comfort, various like other things like hobbies, health considerations for each of those people. And then it allowed students to choose which person they would want to interview. So in this initial message, it's saying like, hey, select one of the following personas that you'd like to talk to. And then students are able to decide who they want to have a conversation with. And then one thing that you can do in Flint also is make activities speaking and listening enabled. So I asked it to do that here so that it actually feels like the students are talking with someone. Yeah, and then I gave it like a couple more prompts here and tested it out. And yeah, I thought this could also be a pretty interesting application. I think there was a comment in the chat here. Yeah, okay. So Jeanette is asking, I would like to create a game based on the vocabulary and use the images you already have. Yeah, you can definitely do that. So when you want to, I would upload like the vocabulary in this chat actually while you're building it. So here you can upload like documents, links, also photos, or take a photo actually. To upload a photo, you would want to do it on this side. But yeah, from here you can upload like a list of the vocabulary or you can type it in. And then I would like upload all of the images, maybe just make sure that they're labeled well. And then you can tell Flint, reference the images that I've uploaded when you're practicing with students. And so that will make sure that Flint is displaying the images that you have put in there. I think I actually have an example of that too. Yeah, so in this example, it's like this is an activity about design heuristics. And so I actually uploaded this poster with the 10 different heuristics from the Nielsen-Norman group. And I told Flint, hey, put this in your initial message and make sure students can reference it as they go through the activity. So for students, like any of these images that you put in, it can appear on the right-hand side, and then they can still chat with Flint on the left-hand side. Yeah. And then second question was, can Flint provide the voice for those personas? We're not quite there yet. We actually just updated the voices and they sound more natural, but you still can't tell Flint like, hey, sound like a 80-year-old woman or like a 75-year-old man. It's not quite that specific yet, but that would be really cool. And I think once there are systems that enable that, we'll definitely add it into Flint. Great, awesome. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me, by the way, if you have any questions. But just some like, oh, go ahead, Joe.
When you were the example of uploading design portfolios, I'm wondering about how Flint then uses that information to generate other responses. I'm thinking particularly of, for instance, I teach DP art, and I would want to be cautious about what information is then used or retained by Flint to influence other creations of work. And I was just curious about that, like the ownership of the imagery and also what is used from what a student might upload to generate for others.
Got it. No, that's a really good question. And considering the news that I shared, I probably should have touched on that. But yeah, so the way that Flint works is we don't make any of our own AI models, actually. We use other AI models from other companies. And the way that we like make our platform COPPA compliant and GDPR compliant is that we pay these companies more money basically to say like, hey, we want to use your model, but we don't want to give you back any data. So the data is all retained within Flint, and actually it's retained within individual sessions as well. There's like some analysis that goes on, but we're not like training other activities on what you've uploaded before or what students have uploaded before. So if a student uploads their portfolio into one session and then a different student in your class uses that same activity, the new session will not know the previous student's portfolio, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sorry, I have another follow-up question too. Yeah. So following along with that, obviously, as we are looking at areas of academic honesty and stuff for students as we're submitting final submissions at the end of the DP, where does that fit? Like, I'm not really sure exactly how Flint might fit in or be registered in terms of recognizing the use of AI, because in the DP, the kids are allowed to use it, but they have to cite it, for instance. So how does detection of the use of Flint work in terms of something like Turnitin, which is a plagiarism software, which we typically use?
That's a good question. I think the honest answer is there's not a straightforward answer right now. Each school is kind of tackling it differently. So what I've seen most commonly, though, I guess, is that students will add in their citations a link to their conversation with Flint. So in any conversation with Flint, if the student is like referencing a specific part of the conversation, actually, like just one message that Flint sent them and gave them a bunch of information from, there is like a direct button where they can cite that message. And this puts it in like APA, MLA, Chicago styles, and includes a link to that session for the student. But I would just note, or wait, before I add the note. So that's like for an individual message, but also if the student wants to cite the entire conversation, actually, never mind. This cites the entire conversation, so it should be okay. But I would just note that any of these like links are only accessible like to people at your school. So if it is something that the student is putting together like a bibliography for sending to like IB folks or AP folks or whatever it might be, they might need to like print the session so that it's like a PDF and like store it somewhere and then cite it more publicly.
So record it as they go. So just so you know, like for a DP, they wouldn't like an examiner or someone wouldn't access that link. It would just be that the kid needs to cite it.
Oh,
so
okay.
being able to copy that in whatever format is delicious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Oh yeah, and then Janeth said earlier, so the games or activities I create then belong to Flint. I guess I've never thought of it that way. We're not necessarily like using it as like a, hey, this is now our intellectual property or anything. But we do store the information, so take that how you will, I guess. And yeah, if you have any concerns about like how that works or like where we store it, let me know and I can get you that information, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and Rich is asking if the student's history is saved for them. Yes, it is. So any conversations that they've had with Flint, they can come back to. And yeah, any of the activities that you set up for them, they can come back to. And they can also have additional sessions with it. So like if you set up something to help them review a certain topic or a certain concept, you can always have the students go back later if they need a refresher. Yeah. But yeah, Joe wants to know how the data is protected. I can send our privacy policy in here. But yeah, we do store all of the data in the US, I'm pretty sure. And this privacy policy should have all of the details there. Yeah, and if there's like anything in there that you have questions about, feel free to ask me at any point. Yeah, and even if I don't know, I'll find out the answer. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions about all that jazz? Great. Okay, so yeah, I think this is maybe my last slide before the share out. But just some like general tips to summarize all this with. When I was looking at the registration, I did see that a lot of people who are interested in joining teach younger students. So I do want to like note that you can adjust the reading level of Flint in a way. You can tell it like, hey, I teach like year 3 or I teach 2nd grade. And Flint should adjust that for the students. And then if you're like reviewing it and you're like, this is still too hard, you can just say, hey, make the language simpler. My students are not at this reading level yet. That's like a really good thing to double check with Flint. Yeah, and then I usually suggest all across the board, not just for like art and design, but providing examples of your own feedback or analysis. If it is that like you're creating a feedback activity for students, that can be really helpful just because Flint will give like, generic feedback based on what its training data has determined is good feedback. But for the teachers who really want Flint to give feedback like they do and in the style that they do, giving it examples or like more guidelines on how you do it is helpful. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm sure this group all knows this, but image generation and recognition can still make mistakes. Sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're a bit weirder. But yeah, so like just test out your activities. Also probably like give your students a heads up like, hey, AI is still like something that's in development and we're just experimenting with it. But yeah. And then Janeth is saying, is there any way to get assistance while you are doing a project? And does that apply for foreign language teaching? Oh, for the reading levels? Yeah, you can. We support CFR and ACTFL levels, specifically for foreign languages. But yeah, you can also just say like, hey, give Flint the context of like, these are 10-year-olds who just started learning Spanish or something like that. Oh, of course, Joe. Yeah, feel free to share these slides with anyone you'd like. And wait, did I answer all the questions? Oh, is there any way to get assistance while you're doing a project? So yes. I will go back into the platform really quickly to show you this. But yeah, whenever you're in Flint, in the bottom left here, you'll see like your name and your profile picture. If you click on there, oh wait, sorry, no. If you click on learn more about Flint, you can click on help, and then this will open up this dialog on the right-hand side where you can like search through our documentation, or you can also ask a question. And you'll get an immediate response from this bot that I've trained on all of our documentation. But I also look through all of the questions and usually respond within a day, if not shorter. So if you do have any questions, you can ask them in here. Yeah, that's one good thing to know. And then another good thing to know is that we do have these like ready-made activities that have been published by other educators in Flint. So yeah, we actually just changed this recently. So anyone who has been using Flint a little bit, this used to be called the templates library, but now we've added for there to be both a public library and a school library. So the school library is where you can like share activities with just people in your school. But we also have this public library where a bunch of educators, some students even, have been publishing activities that they've been making. And there is this like section for the arts where you can have it filter for like art related activities here. Awesome. Okay. So I'll go ahead and move to the Shareout and Q&A section. So Libby and Yuxi, I think, and also Jake were gracious enough to share their time and all of their insights with us. Libby and Yuxi are here. Jake sent me a video, which I can play for you all in a bit. But yeah, all awesome art and design teachers. So I'll go ahead and leave it to Libby if you want to share. Feel free to share a screen or just talk about your experiences. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Good morning from India. Thanks for having me, Lulu. It's so great to get the creatives together. First off, I just want to say Flint has been really nice just to enhance creativity, not necessarily replace it. And it's really important to facilitate that dialogue with your students. So it's just a really good tool to extend thinking, right? So if you can help students really understand that, it's been really fun in the middle school art classroom. Sorry, that's my dog. It's been great for technical help. So that's one way I've been using it. I teach Photoshop. And so I have students upload their work. If I give them a template, they fill it in. For example, I do a rickshaw template, and they have to fill it in with designs that represent the art elements and principles of design. And so then they upload their image, a JPEG, and Flint analyzes it with them. And so students are able to say, hey, do you see movement in my design? And Flint will respond and say, hey, I see a really great, value shift here and gradient, but movement isn't really emphasized. Like, it uses the language back with students, so they really have to critically analyze and check their understanding. Okay, do I understand what this means? And so something I didn't anticipate when I did this with students was they actually stopped and went back to Photoshop and used that, like the feedback, and applied it right away. So as I'm moving around the classroom, I just thought students, okay, use this as a feedback, a guidance, a review of the criteria. So they were pausing, going back, changing and altering their design, and then re-uploading it to Flint, and then kind of facilitating that conversation again. Hey, do you see movement? So it was really cool to kind of see that natural progression. It also really helped them identify like art concepts and vocab, thinking about photography, so rule of thirds, compositional choices. So really just the idea of using it as project guidance and feedback has been really beneficial in the classroom. And then I think Lulu had on the slide a photography quiz. Of course, I went a little old school, but I wanted the students to be able to really apply their understandings of the exposure triangle. So Flint was able to kind of give them scenarios. And so students and they had the cameras in front of them, which was really cool. So there was that tactile aspect of their DSLRs, and then they were using Flint and kind of going through this interactive quiz of, all right, let's go through these parts, right? What is, what aperture do you need for this setting, and what kind of ISO are you going to have on a sunny, bright day? Yeah, and so the controls of the camera has been really nice. Of course, self-assessment. I've used it with self-assessments, critiques as a critique partner, just to kind of switch up critiques in the classroom. Middle schoolers sometimes don't necessarily always want to share and talk. So having that individualized critique with Flint has been great, especially just for flexibility and adaptation to language levels. Students are able to speak in their home language, and it's worked really well. I've had to help students. Sometimes they want to just toggle on that language control, from Korean to English, but I tell them, oh, just ask Flint. And they'll just write, speak in Korean, speak in Hebrew. And Flint just automatically switches, which has been really nice. The last thing I just want to touch base on was kind of research. My sixth graders create spirit animal collages. So I had Flint create this kind of spirit animal questionnaire. And so they just answer, A, B, C, D, regarding their characteristics and their traits. And so at the end, Flint gives them their spirit animal and it generates an image. I didn't think that would be the exciting part for these sixth graders, but it was. And so everyone was comparing their foxes and their eagles. But then what I loved about it is it gave them that educational resource site. It gave them, okay, go to National Geographic, go to Wikipedia to check the information. So I loved how it was kind of reinforcing being a responsible user to check that. So I was going to share my screen, but I decided I would not. So it's okay. If anyone wants any questions or has any questions or follow up, I'd be happy to share. So yeah, that's it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Libby. Yeah, I feel like you've been trying out a bunch of very different sorts of applications of Flint, so very excited also to see what you build next. Yeah. Any questions for Libby? Cool, okay. Yuxi, do you want to share what you've been doing from like the design angle?
Yes. Hi. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Yuxi, and I am a design teacher, a secondary design teacher here at Hong Kong Academy in Hong Kong. We've been introduced to Flint since the beginning of this semester, and then I've been using it ever since with my grade, all the way from grade 6 all the way to grade 10. So there are a couple activities I found Flint helped me really, really well. I've used the research question generation bot with my lower grade 6 and 7 students, because when they do their design project, they have an idea, but then sometimes they have a very ambitious idea, but they don't know how to actually realize it. So what I built up a bot for them to ask the student, what's your idea, and then keep asking those questions and help students to identify the area that they need to do the research on. And then, but the actual research part didn't happen on Flint. We guided them to the library resources and also Google resources for them to do data validation on their research answers. But Flint was being very helpful to generate all variety of research questions according to XSFM structures, and then really help our students to navigate their path in designing their final project. The other activity that I find very helpful is before the student actually start to make their project. For example, our grade 6, 7, and 8 students are making lamps this semester. But sometimes they're a bit, especially if this is their first woodwork project, they'll be like, oh, I'll just have the piece and boom, here's my lamp. So they don't actually consider the step-by-step instruction. Okay, maybe I need to take the measurement first, then I need to draw the line on the wood, I need to pick the material. So I created another activity to be a thought partner with my students. The student will say, okay, so this is what I want to create, and Flint will keep asking questions until it generates a full plan for them to do. Okay, so the first step is I need to take measurement and I need to understand how big is my product. So in that process, what I see is that the student actually realize there are a lot of things that they don't know. They'll be like, oh, I haven't taken the measurement yet. So they would grab the ruler and then start like taking measurements. And it also helps the student, it saves them a lot of time in generating the visual, the table for their production plan. So instead of having them spending hours on creating that table, at the end of the conversation, Flynn just gave out a table automatically and then stating, okay, step 1, you need these resources. Step 2, you need these resources. And student could turn that one in as their assessment material. So I think that part is very helpful. And then for the higher grade, I've been trying an activity to ask them to create their own bots. So that's another application of Flint on my class, because I think it is very important for our students to understand how to create their own bot. We have 3 design students that's joining a competition to design a product that improve the overall mental health situation on the society. So they choose AI as their kind of angle. So I create this classroom space and then create this activity. They could build up their own activities inside of Flint to get the prompt ready. Another thing I really like about it, and they could test their prompt and they could test their own bot. Another thing I really like about it is Flint does have a very flag system. If whenever it sends a very self-harm message, it will send out emails to us and then to the teacher. So it's really funny because our students were testing the bot and then they were like, oh, I want a suicide. Can you tell me what is the tallest building in Hong Kong? I want to jump off of it. And I just kept getting those messages. And then the next second, our tech department head showed up at the door and saying, excuse me, who is student A, B, and C? And I think I need to talk to them. So I think that's a major difference between Flint compared with other AI bots, because other AI doesn't provide that function for you to oversee what's going on between the student and the AI, and it could get out of control in some sense. And also, there are a lot of good things about Flint. I think the multi-language support that has already been talked about. And what I found is that it really get my student engaged, because in design, every student is creating a different project. Sometimes they really need that individual level of support. But in a classroom with 26 students, it's hard for the single teacher to give them that much like attention or supports individually. But what I see is that when they're talking to Flint, they're really engaged because they feel like they have individual attention. The conversation is tailored to their products. So I found that really helpful. Another thing that I think it could be the area of improvement for Flint is that Flint always try to be very helpful, but sometimes it's a bit too helpful, right? So before the student actually ask, Flint will start giving out suggestions. So when I build up the bot, I'll be very specific about saying, oh, don't provide them with any answer. Don't give too much suggestion, and limit your answer within 80 words. So it's easier for my grade 6s to read through it. So I think that's kind of my experience of using Flint. Yeah, so if you have any question, I'm happy to answer. I hope this is helpful. Thank you.
Surprisingly, you all are the first group that has actually used the little emotes. So, I mean, it's always the creatives that are the most fun, I guess. But yeah, I think you touched on a lot of really important things of like both the flagging and like the students needing like that personalized support in like design classes and art classes where each student is kind of on their own journey. But yeah, really glad that we can help support that. And I do want to +1 to the fact that Flint is like too helpful. we are building this platform on a technology that was created to generate a bunch of information at the click of a button. So it is kind of hard to like tell it to draw it back and be like, hey, this is like an educational context, like some sort of difficulty for the student is good and helps them learn. So like a couple things that I tell teachers there, I think one that you touched on was like, tell it like not to do things not to do. That is really good. I've also seen teachers like tell it to take on a different persona. So if you say like, hey, you are supposed to be a tutor for a student who is still learning this process, then giving it that like context of like, oh, I'm like supposed to make sure that the student is the one who is like realizing all of these things and drawing their own conclusions. That can also help sometimes. Yeah, go ahead, Libby.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit too on sometimes when you have the grading on, especially if you're doing like ideation and feedback, even research, I would suggest turning that off. Something I found specifically with the middle school age was at some points, depending on what the project was or the use was for the tool, it became a little competitive with some demographics of my student. It was like, oh, you only got a P or an A for approaching, you want a P for proficient. So they were kind of trying to start more conversations. So there were multiple chats that they started to try to beat each other. So just as a pro tip, if it is really just kind of feedback, ideation, research, maybe turn the grading off if there isn't a grade attached to it.
Very true, very true. Yeah. And yeah, I guess like a different scale of that is like, you can go as granular as saying like, hey, give students like a plus minus system grade, like within 5 points or something. But you can also say to Flint, like, hey, I want you to give them like qualitative grades, not so much quantitative. But yeah, like that could, I see, still cause students to, really want to just get like the best grade possible. So if it is a distraction, yeah, turning it off is an option in Flint. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I will show the video from Jake actually. He recorded like a 10-minute video. I won't play the whole thing for you all. But yeah, he unfortunately wasn't able to be here today because go figure, he's at the end of year art show for their school. But yeah, he sent me over this whole video kind of introducing himself and then showing off like 2 examples of activities that he's done with students, both in like an online class that he teaches and also a in-person one, pretty sure. I'll show you one of them, but the link to the full recording will also be in the slides afterwards. But I just thought this one was really interesting because he gave Flint this whole other personality. Yeah, and I'll just have him explain it here. Let me know if you can't hear it, by the way.
So I started kind of with this question, which is what if students could chat with Bruce Gilden? Now he's a photojournalist who has kind of this cool online presence. You can go and find some of his videos, and he talks about photography in this very direct, he's got like a New York accent, he's very direct, he's also very kind and thoughtful about the way that he approaches photo critiques. And I was like, man, they have me, but wouldn't it be great if they could also hear from this kind of like photojournalist, professional working, photojournalist, kind of a living legend. And so I decided to give Flint the personality of Bruce Gilden for this asynchronous class. And so you can see some of like the chats that I had. And every week they would have a certain number of chats with Flint, which was kind of interesting, and it would help them kind of refocus their attention on their work. But you can see they would always start with something kind of like this New York photojournalist style, right? Photography isn't just about snapping what's in front of you, it's about capturing the essence of a moment, right? And so it was kind of this fun personality that people got into a little bit, and it was helpful as we were kind of getting into the stuff. But Flint helpfully was there for students as they were starting to dive into these assignments. So one assignment that I issued in my photo storytelling class was to create a photo story about issues that young people face. Kind of open-ended. There was way more information, but of course, we try to give these open-ended assignment ideas to students, and inevitably we end up with this kind of first question, right? Which is, you can see that Bruce starts the conversation in Flint, And then all of a sudden, we've got this first question, which is I am really confused on the directions for this last project, to be honest. And as a asynchronous teacher in this moment, that's a bad situation to be in. The student doesn't totally understand. Hopefully they reach out to me. Hopefully I can answer their question very quickly. But in this case, Flint is right there. Flint can answer the question directly, and because Flint also has access to the assignment details, is able to turn around a very concise explanation of the assignment that we're trying to do, talking about the pitch that you're going to offer to a photo editor, and then the student thinks they get it. So then they're able to move on, which is fantastic. It's something really important, I think, for just like some of those early creative phases, just understanding what am I supposed to do here. And so that was super helpful. And then he gets into it. For my pitch, I want to talk about the effect of climate change on young children, specifically the heat in Arizona. And that's a great starting point. If I'm in the room with that student, I'm like, fantastic. Like, all right, cool. Let's talk about this a little bit more. But in an asynchronous class, or maybe I'm on the other side of the room from where this student is, talking to other kids, and he's got this idea. Well, maybe it's helpful then that Bruce comes along in Flint and gives very specific feedback, asking this student to be more specific, right? And I think we've all gotten to this place where so sometimes the original idea, the first idea, is not always the best one, and it's really important to somehow figure out a way conceptually to get past, all right, I've got the seed of an idea, where do I go? And this is a very natural way for kids to do that, is to talk it through with someone who's patient and can work through their ideas. It even gives him specific things to think about ways that he could focus this and make it more specific. And so he comes up with some ideas, and at the end we end up with this, this is one of a number of photos in this photo story, but like this is way more helpful. A lot of the time we get just random pictures of climate changey type stuff, and this is a really nice establishing shot that includes kind of a portrait of a kid looking out over this desert. We can kind of clearly see the connection between the topic and the direction that Flint was trying to get the student to go. So that immediate feedback, I really think, set this kid on the right track. And and I think I'm not sure that I would have given better feedback in that instance to just try to get past the initial idea of I want to do something about climate change.
Yeah. And after this, he shares how like some of the feedback from students, some of them really liked Bruce's personality. One of them said it was weird, but also kind of funny. But yeah, just like another way that you can create like a more engaging activity for the students. Cool, yeah. Is there anyone else also on the call that wants to share something that they've tried with Flint, or even if there's like an idea that you haven't actually built out yet, but you want to like pick other people's brains for? No pressure. Okay, cool. Yeah. Hopefully you all have gotten some inspiration from today's session. I'll just quickly go through. Oh,
Can I just ask a question? Because I haven't used Flint yet, but I'm a digital media and photography teacher as well as middle school art. Yeah, and I like that was fantastic what Libby had and the other things. So if I would search, because I'm thinking of like ways I could use it, I can go into the public school and kind of say photography ideas and see what other people have maybe thought or designed. Is that what I would do to just maybe start? Are they kind of listed there, what other people have done, so I can get a grasp of how to go about making something?
yeah. Yes, let me like demonstrate that for you really quick. So in Flint, if you go down to the bottom left corner, there's the public library, which is, we're kind of likening it to a public library, I guess, where there's a bunch of resources that anyone can use to their benefit. But yeah, in here you can like look specifically for arts, or you can look for like they like photography, and then see like this is the Bruce activity that Jake was sharing. Yeah, there's like another like camera one. It looks like there's a visual adventure guide as well. But yeah, I would just like try various keywords in here. It's like
Nice, thank you.
look at, yeah. I think our search is like kind of weird sometimes. So like trying different words will sometimes give you different options. But yeah,
Thank you, Libby.
yes. Thank you, Libby. But yeah, you can go here, and any of these individual ones you can like click on, and then when you click duplicate this activity, it will make a copy of all of the same settings and bring it into your workspace. Yeah, and like those people who are publishing it, like their students' work won't like get sent over as well, and like all of that. But yeah, that is how you could get started, and it's like a good place for inspiration too.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool, awesome. yes, feel free to still interrupt me with questions if things come up. But I'm just gonna really quickly do like the recap slides. Yeah, so for the next sessions, whether you find this is relevant or not, we'll probably do one next week on this like new student AI certification program that we're starting. A lot of people have been asking me like, hey, do you have like a student facing deck, or like, do you guys have any resources to teach students about how to use AI or what AI is? We're working on it now. So plan is for it to be live next week. If it is live next week, we'll also do a Campfire session on it. And then 2 weeks from now, after all of the AP exams are over, actually, we're planning on having a ACT and SAT prep session as well. Like a bit extracurricular almost, but also a question that I've been getting from a bunch of teachers like, hey, I have students, they're stressed, how can I help them? So yeah, we'll also be running that. But yeah, all recordings will be posted at this link, but also all of you who have joined or anyone who has registered, I'll send out the link directly to your emails as well. And here are 2 helpful QR codes. On the left, we have the Campfire calendar. Since you registered for this one, you'll probably still be notified of upcoming sessions. But I guess more importantly, on the right-hand side, we did start this new Flint community. So it's kind of like a forum combined with a calendar, and we're basically trying to gather everyone in there and have it be a place for like more of these conversations, but you know, asynchronous and with more people. So yeah, that would be great if you all can join. Great place to post additional questions or ideas. Yeah. Cool. Any final questions, comments, concerns? Thank you all. These are so cute.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.